She thought about it because I knew she wanted to lie. And I knew she was enjoying lying. And she just, it's long pause, she said, "Okay, Daddy, you can lie to me." She could universalize at 2.5 that she could not claim the right to lie if she did not give me that same right. She universalized lying at 2.5. Ethics is not that hard. If someone who's 2.5 can do it, it's not that hard. It's just hard because we've got so much propaganda to the contrary. All right, so I think we're where are we time? Yeah, okay. So thanks everyone. I will be around this afternoon and for dinner. Please pepper me with objections, and this is a huge, important, I think, essential project. I don't think we can ask people to give up theological ethics if we can't give them something new. We can't ask them to give up the state if they can't. We can't give them some new way of processing ethics that don't require, necessarily just prison cells and hell and so on. So ethics has sucked. I think that there's ways to make it not suck. Let's have it not suck together. Thank you, everybody, so much.
Because we were bringing up philosophers from the past, and that one seems a little bit different.
Well, remind me of what his, it's been a long time since I've read it, so what was his central argument?
Well, it was kind of like the central argument that brought about libertarianism, from what I can tell. I only listened to it about maybe 3 times and haven't come across a copy to read, but the premise is a lot of the whole non-aggression principle of action, fundamental human rights as laws.
Yeah, I think that's, there's very few people who say my theory of ethics violates some people's rights. There's not many people who say that, even though obviously it does, right? In the UN they say, you have a right to education, which turns educators into slaves, right? Obviously, if you have a right to somebody else's labor, they're your effective serf. So, people, if they talk about equality, I think that's great. Keep your eyes peeled, and I actually just picked up a copy of the laws from Laissez-Faire Books when I was down there talking at Freedom Fest in Vegas. I can read through it again. Look for that flip where suddenly he says, we need this equality, and we need the government to maintain this equality, because then you've just broken universality, and you've got theft, and you've got rights. So again, I don't want to diss Bastiat, because maybe he doesn't do that switch, but almost everyone else I've read does do that switch. Rothbard not included.
Sorry, it's not one that you've analyzed yet. It's not one that you've analyzed yet.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, but it's a good one, because I know he's very important to the libertarian community. Yes, sir.
Hey, just like to say that it was fun.
Oh, thanks. I'm sweating. I got philosophy sweats on. Maybe be toweled down after this.
I have 3 questions. Your discussion at the beginning on the ownership of effects caught my attention. And I have 3 questions surrounding it. So
just give me one at a time, because I'm over 40.
Okay. So the first question is, does that whole game, is that significant to your UPB argument? I didn't see the connection. Is there one, or was that?
Well, you can't have morality if people don't own the effects of their actions. Because if I go strangle some guy, I own his death. I have created, I have produced, I have homesteaded his corpse, so to speak, right? If we don't own the effects of our actions, you can't charge anyone with morality, right? So it's the difference, like this crazy shooter in Colorado. Let's say they found out he's got some giant brain tumor, that has completely fried his brain. Well, that's a different moral situation than elsewise. So we can't have any ethical system or any responsibility, and you also can't debate if somebody doesn't own the effects of your argument. So if I responded to Dr. Block, like if I said, "Hey Walter, that was a great point you just made about blah 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 blah," you'd be like, "Hey, that was my point." Like, you can't respond to Walter, so you can't even debate unless you're responding to the points that the person is making by recognizing that they own the effects of their actions. So and this is the true. If you create. You go harvest some cherries or whatever, you've created them as a usable good. We own the effects of our actions morally in terms of property and so on. So it is pretty important to the theory, yeah.
Okay. And the reason why I'm curious is I think you explained it now, thinking about meaning, and when I think of ownership myself, I typically think of property, physical goods, and we have ownership in the property because we are trying to avoid conflict. And so I was thinking, well, how exactly does that translate into ownership of something that is not physical, that you cannot grab and say, hey, don't take that, that's mine. And I think mean is you have a sort of categorically different idea of ownership in terms of the results of your actions, in the sense that, no, it's not like we're potentially having a conflict here. You're just saying taking responsibility, that there is assignable responsibility for an action, as opposed to an ownership that we think of in terms of property.
Yeah, I'm very much against consequentialism. You cannot judge the value of a theory by its effects, right? You don't say, is the theory of relativity true or false because it produces atomic weapons? I mean, that's no meaning. You can't judge a theory by its consequences. You can judge it by its internal consistency and the empirical evidence, but you can't say it's good or bad. So, to me, you say, okay, well, property reduces conflict. Well, so does a dominant state that forces everyone to pay to the point where everyone just hands over their money. That reduces conflict too. So I'm not a big one for property as a reduction of conflict. I think it does reduce conflicts, but it's not just or fair because it reduces conflicts. I think it's a happy byproduct of a rational system of property rights. But no, I don't think it's good because it reduces conflicts.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. And then the final question was, if we concede that there is ownership in the effects of our actions, and one action might be, hey, discussing a new idea that I've got that you didn't have yet, and now you've got it. So I mean, as a result of my action, my action. Do I also have the ability from this? Does it follow, or does it not, that I can claim ownership of my ideas, and that IP is therefore valid?
Well, you can claim ownership of anything that you want. Is it valid or not? IP is a big topic, and you probably want to talk to somebody much better at this. Another Steph out there called Kinsella that you probably want to have more. I've done some shows on IP. To me, if I write a book and sell a book, I can include in that, don't resell it. That could be a condition of sale. And then if you resell it, you've broken a contract. So to me, IP is not something that should be centrally enforced, obviously, by a state, but it should be a continuously evolving system of contract law, and of course it's optional. I choose not to copyright my stuff. It's all available for free, and everything I do is a donation-based model. But if people, they're free to put a contract in, say, if you buy the CD, don't copy it. And then if you copy it, but of course nobody can ever find these people. It's all unenforceable. So I would be very fascinated to see what would happen. I'm very taken by some of Jeffrey Tucker's arguments, which you can read about in It's a Jetsons World, about the degree to which, say, classical music had incredible leaps forward where there was no IP and no copyright. And in the countries where there was IP and copyright, that's an argument from effect, but I think it's still an interesting one to go. So I do definitely think that taking somebody's music obviously doesn't diminish their original thing. It's different from taking somebody's kidney. No, I mean, property is my body too, right? I mean, I have grown my property in the same way that I write a book, but it's still not quite the same thing. If somebody, lends my book to someone to read it versus somebody takes a spoon and carves out my kidney. So I would be fascinated to see what IP would look like in a free society. It wouldn't look anything like it is right now. And I think that the creativity of the planet would be much benefited thereby. Anybody else? Last
the way I got interacted with you is I heard you ripping up Ron Paul in one of your speeches. I only listened to the first 10 minutes, and then I wrote this blistering attack on you, which is in my book, chapter 12.
I will find that in my own tears, actually. I've been crying in a little jar.
Then what happened is we communicated with each other, and we agreed to debate formally these issues, maybe in a law review or a libertarian journal or something. And then I kept saying, well, when are you going to send me your reply? And finally, you never sent me a reply, but what you did is you pretty much caved in and supported Ron Paul, so then you said there was no need for a debate. Is my recollection correct on this?
Get him. Get him.
This is off topic to anybody else, but
get him, Steph.
I believe. Look, there's no one alone. I think has any clue how we're can prove how we're going to achieve freedom. I mean, I have my arguments. People have political arguments, and so on. But I do believe in commitment, and so I believe I wanted to give as much ammunition to the Ron Paul supporters as I conceivably could, putting myself in their shoes to make the case as strongly as possible for supporting Ron Paul. And that way, if they do all of that and it doesn't work, I think they may be free of an illusion that it can work. So I really wanted to get behind and help people because, look, I could be wrong. Maybe Ron Paul is maybe political action is the way to go, and my sort of peaceful parenting thing is not